Hey cousins, I'm Shemaya. It's like papaya, except it's not, and this is Plot Twist Please. Let's get into it. The day has finally come, your high school reunion. You buckle up the heels that you haven't worn since you bought them, and wear your first bold red lip in years. The night doesn't really matter, except it does. I have never been to a high school or even a college reunion, partially because I'm waiting until I'm famous. Just kidding. Am I? Who knows? But what that means is I've never had the displeasure of getting my crunchy self off my comfy couch, spending several human hours in a room full of people who I haven't thought about in a decade, chatting it up and acting like I'm going to meet someone for coffee at some point, eventually, because we simply must catch up. I get why some people love a reunion. I do. And I come in peace. Don't burn me at the stake yet for those people. However, there is a feeling of anxiety that I get when I think about getting confronted with the past. There's a film called You Again that I think grasps this feeling of anxiety, anticipation, and immense pressure. What I love about the movie is that it's actually about two things if you look at it sideways and squint. Yes, it's about moving forward despite the people in your past who've harmed you and finding your inner power, but it's also about confronting your past, especially the parts that make you uncomfortable, and especially the parts you're ashamed of. I admit, I used to hate this movie. Yes, it made me laugh. I had a good time, got to see a Broadway diva on screen. You know, Kristen Chen was there, and some Jamie Lee Curtis moments, but still, it irked me. A grown woman has to face her childhood bully head on as the bully gets engaged to her brother, and she does not handle it well. Now let's talk about how many of us would be in that same boat if it were us, and why that matters. But before I get into that, this is a podcast where I talk about movies and mental health. It's for the sensitive movie lovers and self-help deep divers. A sensitive neurodivergent glow-up guide, if you will. It's all coming from a neurodivergent Black woman perspective, so if you like us, you're in the right place. I post main channel episodes. I'm also doing a series called The Soft Spot, where I help you manage those quirky little feelings of yours, but a bite-sized version. So go ahead and like this video, subscribe to this channel, and let me know in the comments. Have you brushed your teeth today? If you're listening on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, go ahead and comment on there. Okay, why is it that topics like forgiveness, childhood trauma, and bullies resurfacing in our adult lives are uncomfortable for us? First of all, I think it's because a bully, a traumatic event, or harm done at our expense tends to feel like a reflection on us. Do I find that to be the case? No. No. Do I think it's a reflection on us? No. But that's how it feels. And self-love is, I find, a confusing, contradictory pursuit. Self-love is confusing. When you hold yourself to high esteem, you have a particular frame of mind. If something bad happens to you, you can determine that it isn't your fault. In fact, I know some people who create chaos and then still conclude that it's not their fault that this chaos is in their orbit. However, when you don't have a strong sense of self or aren't great with the upkeep, other self-deprecating explanations as to why these things happen to you can creep in. Now, what do I mean by upkeep, right? Well, I feel like when we talk about self-love, at least in the public spaces and on these self-help forums and podcasts, we tend to phrase it like, if you decide once in one fateful moment that you love yourself, all of your problems are instantly solved. Just do that. Do it. Why aren't you doing it? Do it right now. Well, for some of us, not only is self-love a rewiring of our literal brain, and those canals can be hard to get through, to navigate. There's no Google Maps in there. It's just your trauma and also a bunch of calculus that you'll never use again, and maybe your social security number is lodged in there too. Basically, what I'm saying is self-love is something our muscles have to get used to practicing. And actually, I'd argue it's that way for many, if not all of us. There are so many outside forces, our parents, our friends, our previous romantic partners, movies, magazines, music, and even legislation that tells us who to value. When we don't make the cut and we don't get something we want, we don't get a relationship we want, we don't get a job we want, etc., then we start to internalize that. You know, I used to think self-love was a soft, pink feminine concept, if you will. But now I see that it's actually the color red. It's not something you can ease into with bubble baths, loofahs, and scented candles. It's something that has to be as ferocious as the force pushing against it. It has to be just as unrelenting and ruthless. It has to be so vicious that no resurfaced self-doubt or remnants of a bully's comment stands a chance. I think a lot of us don't actually love ourselves, or we end up doing things that aren't a reflection of how we should value ourselves because, frankly, we don't have the stamina. My mom used to tell me, when I'd overcommitted myself to extracurricular activities and was running around like a chicken with my head cut off, as you do, that if I didn't have a choice, I needed to just do it tired. I needed to just show up to class tired, show up to rehearsal, to practice, cheerleading practice, tired. So that's what I'm telling you to do. I don't care how exhausting it is. I don't care how tiring it is to gear up mentally every morning before you pick up your phone or clock into work or talk to another human. Do it anyway. Every day, just like your vitamins. In my case, not like my vitamins because I keep forgetting to take them. And my calcium levels are low. But what I'm saying is loving yourself is so hard for some of us that when someone shows up who is either directly from our past or reminds us of our past, one of two things tends to happen, I find. We tend to either resort back to old patterns or to overcorrect old patterns. Either we act like the person with little agency and self-respect, or we go in the other direction and completely go nuclear. And going nuclear in the moment feels good. Being petty feels good for a moment, but has anything really changed? Is this action a reflection of how much you love yourself, or is it actually a reflection of how much you fear yourself? Okay, all right, we're getting a little meta, so we're just gonna rewind a little bit. I'm gonna let us ease our toes into the pool before we take a full belly dive. You can't dive on your belly. You don't dive on your belly. You belly flop or you dive. You get it. Anyway, many of us are actually afraid of who we think we are subconsciously. We don't hate the bully. We actually hate the version of ourselves that was bullied. We hate how we kept quiet. We detest the meekness that made us susceptible to harm. We hate the fact that we couldn't come up with the comeback on the spot. Why couldn't we have done it before they walked out of the room? And we're afraid that deep down, we're actually as helpless as we felt then. Do you ever watch a movie featuring a character you relate to for all the wrong reasons, and you watch them make terrible decisions, while you just yell at them because it's a, pre-recorded show and there's nothing you can do from your side of the screen? The rage I feel, we hate that feeling. We hate it. It makes us feel ill. And we feel like the only way to escape that kind of rage is to direct our ire towards someone else. And that formula sounds really familiar, doesn't it? This formula goes for the bullies as well. Maybe you're someone who has lied to or cheated on or hurt a slew of people in your past because you didn't like yourself very much. Or maybe you didn't trust yourself. Or, shot in the dark, maybe you didn't trust other people. I'm sure there's a dash of shame there too, just a sprinkle. And there's enough shame for everyone, don't worry. There's plenty to go around. But that's why I feel like the title of the movie, You Again, is a double entendre. It's you, as in the person you knew who reminds you of a shameful time, but also you, the person who bears the shame. Because no matter how far you go into the future or into the past, the one person you can never escape is yourself. Another reason why I think people tend to be averse to the whole let bygones be bygones sentiment is because our friends are always right. What I mean is, whatever story is told to us, whether we believe it or not, often depends on who is telling the story rather than the story itself. None of us are exempt from this phenomenon, unfortunately. People tend to be experts at telling stories to their friends and telling them in ways that benefits their narrative, sometimes unintentionally. And telling stories is fun. It can also be validating and provides the kind of healing you need to move on from a bad breakup. However, I've learned most people believe something not because the idea itself is more plausible or the details make sense, but because of the person relaying the information. For example, if someone you lack respect for or dislike relays information to you, you are less likely to believe it. Consequently, if someone you love and or have deep admiration for or respect for or have a relationship with does something morally reprehensible, you are more likely to make excuses for their behavior. Or even people who are more like you are likely to make excuses for their behavior. And for the psychology fanatics and their friend groups, they are more likely to explain away the behavior and belittle the harm caused. I'm that friend. And this is where we talk about the consequences of harm. And I have had a difficult time with the notion of community as a privilege as it pertains to people who cause harm for this reason. The question that keeps me up at night is this. Is a person who consistently causes harm deserving of community? I used to have a very cut and dry answer to this question. It would be a ferocious, adamant no. Community, I believed, was a privilege. And if someone remained in community with a person who has been outed for having harmful relationship or interpersonal patterns, I would have a negative opinion of them. I no longer have a definite answer, though. I think community can be healing and people shouldn't necessarily be held to the worst thing they've ever done. However, I do not think time is an apology. I would say time heals all wounds, but I don't believe that either. I think self-awareness and intentional pattern breaking makes us less prone to cause harm, and community helps us heal from harm done toward us. That being said, if it's true what they say, hurt people, we can't expect people to heal outside of access to a community dedicated to help them do so, right? I genuinely haven't come to a conclusion about this thought, but I'll leave that to you. Lastly, many of us still ascribe how we've been treated in the past to our own shortcomings, even when who we were had nothing to do with the way we were treated or what transpired. I used to think that if I was good, if I was perfect, then nothing bad would happen to me, but that's just not the way it works, and no one is good and perfect all the time. Nobody. And sometimes things happen to you not because you did anything wrong, but because you stepped on a landmine, or you got caught in the crossfires of someone else's healing process, or you trusted too easily and now you know better, or you didn't trust at all and sabotaged yourself. And you can do these things more than once. You can hit your head on the same boulder more than once. And it doesn't make you stupid, and it doesn't make you disposable, and it doesn't make the ways in which you've been harmed justified. And this sounds basic, but for some people it's not. It's easy to forget that people lash out for all kinds of reasons. And when we remember these things on an intellectual level, we can often be slow to internalize them in our bodies. If it's not muscle memory, it's just a rumor. And until you are able to enact self-love in actual practice, it's just a quote you found on Pinterest or saw on Instagram or heard on a podcast. And I'm going to be so real with you. Self-love is ashy. It is crusty. It's annoying. It's hard to recommit yourself to yourself every day. It's not easy to decide at a moment's notice in the face of your insecurities that you're actually worthy of the things you want. But you must. It's a non-negotiable. You've got to do it, and you're capable of doing it too. I happen to believe that we are often stronger than we believe ourselves to be. We are capable of love and of forgiveness and of facing the parts of ourselves that we aren't proud of, and even scared of, with empathy. And I think it's okay that we have moments of anger and sadness concerning the things that went down in our past. I think it's okay to have a crash out every now and then. A dainty crash out, if you will. We shouldn't run away from those uncomfortable feelings, because if we do, we risk hurting other people. We risk repeating patterns or creating new ones that are rooted in fears that were never ours to begin with. We want to be able to look back and say, look how much I've grown. Or else we end up staying there If we can't celebrate our growth, we risk looking up one day and being in the same place. And we don't want that. No. So, I invite you to hop aboard the train I choose to be on as a lover of expansive community as we travel together past the sea of contentment across the hills of tranquility. I'm just kidding. Okay, metaphors aside, let's be real here. We can't stay in the same place, y'all. So we've got to get it together, and we can take our time doing it. You know what? Scrap that. We're not having a dainty crash out. We're having a hearty, robust, ugliest of the ugly crash out, and we're gonna like it. At least I hope that for you. Anyways, that's all I have for you today. New setting. I think I was talking way too loudly because I was not using my pop filter today, and also it's a new setting, new setup with the mic. I just wanted to set up my workspace so that I can separate work from play and rest, because I need that these days. Don't we all? But yeah, stay tuned Fridays and Sundays. The soft spot is coming back this coming week, and I will see you over there on that side of the world. Bye. Anyway, be blessed, stay weird. Bye-bye. Yay. Hooray, that was cute and fun. I had fun. Why is it saying like that? No, whoa, don't say it like that.